the afternoon, everybody singing a soft tune. Two men died in the Mississippi moon.
Hi, I'm Rabbi Paul Arberman from Temple Beth David. As you may know, I'm a Bob Dylan fan. So a few years ago, Bob Dylan was honored by Music Cares as Person of the Year. Music Cares is a charity organization that aids musicians in need. After performances by artists such as Tom Jones, Sheryl Crow, Neil Young, Beck, Jackson Browne, and others, Dylan delivered a 30-minute speech, acceptance speech. He talked a bit about the creative process, about how he came to write the songs that he wrote. Dylan said, "I'm glad for my songs to be honored like this, but you know, they didn't get here by themselves. These songs didn't come out of thin air. They're not, I didn't just make them out of whole cloth. There was a precedent. For 3 or 4 years, I listened to folk music standards. I went to sleep singing these songs. I sang them everywhere, clubs, parties, fields, festivals, coffee houses. If you sang," Bob Dylan said, "if you sang John Henry as many times as I did, John Henry was a steel-driving man, died with a hammer in his hand. John Henry said a man ain't nothing but a man. Before I let that steam drill drive me down, I'll die with that hammer in my hand." Dylan said, "If you had sung that song as many times as I did, you'd have written, 'How many roads must a man walk down?' too." Dylan said, "I learned, roll the cotton down, $10 a day is a white man's pay, $1 a day is a black man's pay. Roll the cotton down. If you sang that song as many times as me, you'd be writing, 'I ain't gonna work on Maggie's farm no more.' If you sang all these 'Come ye' songs, come all ye roving gamblers, come gather round children and hear the story about pretty boy Floyd the outlaw,' you too might have written, 'Come gather round children, come gather round people wherever you roam and admit that the waters around you have grown.' You'd have written them too. There's nothing secret about it," said Dylan. "You just do it subliminally and unconsciously because that's all he knew. That's all he sang. These were the only kinds of songs that made sense to him. And all the kinds of songs are connected. Don't be fooled," said Dylan. "I just opened up a different door in a different kind of way. It's just different, but saying the same things." Dylan's speech is all about what shapes our inner voices. And it makes sense to us, the Jewish community, because we read and reread the Seder every year. We read and reread the same Torah readings. If you read every year countless details about building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, how people gave their truma, their gifts, to build it, you would know that the only things worth building are things that are built with love and generosity of spirit. They learned that their material wealth that they gave was only valuable because it brought them spiritual riches. That story would make sense to you, and you too could use your wealth for bringing God to earth, to make sure that people had dignity and clothing and food and could achieve spiritual meaning in their lives. If you heard each year about a tabernacle as a home for the 10 Commandments, as a home for God on earth, but that God said, "Stop building my home on Shabbat, on the Sabbath. You've got to stop and rest. You former slaves," because life isn't just about work. Even if you are building something for God. If you read this every year, then you too might rally against unfair wages or overworking or slavery in the world. If you sang the songs of Pesach, Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves in Egypt, then you too would cry out when women were being trafficked as sex slaves. You would soak up those lessons and you would expel them. You would give creativity to them naturally. Why do Jews need to study and learn our texts and traditions in schools and at home and in the synagogue and in classes? Because when we soak up these texts, we are ready to open a different door to the present. We are not just learning history, we are learning how to be here and now. When you do the Seder again and again, and this year, it becomes part of your inner voice. and allows you to write new songs of freedom and spirituality and justice. We have the same texts for our seder every year, but each year they open new doors for us and for our children. Stay healthy, stay happy,